Okay, so you want to buy a ranch in America. Thousands of acres of land just to farm and breed some of the fastest horses in the world. Animals that can end up worth billions of dollars combined. A thoroughbred breeding farm isn't a cattle ranch with fancier animals. It's a completely different business wearing a cowboy hat. In Kentucky's bluegrass region, where most of America's top breeding happens, land alone runs $20,000 to $40,000 an acre. 10 times what cattle land costs a few states over. You're not paying for grass. You're paying for soil with the exact limestone and mineral content that grows strong bones in young horses. That's not marketing. It's why this specific patch of Kentucky and almost nowhere else in America produces the horses that end up in the Kentucky Derby winner's circle. A working breeding farm needs more than fields. You need a foaling barn staffed around the clock because a mare can go from normal to an emergency in under 10 minutes when she's giving birth. You need paddocks fenced to a standard that costs $15 to $25 a foot because a horse worth 8 figures cannot be kept behind the same wire that holds a cow. You need a veterinary setup on site, not a 15-minute drive away. A modest 200-acre operation starts around $8 million before a single horse sets foot on it. And that's before you've bought any horses. A single well-bred brood mare, a female with the right bloodline and race record, can cost $500,000 to $2 million on her own before she's produced a single foal. Some sell for far more. In 2018, a broodmare named Marceline sold at auction for $2.1 million while pregnant, purely on the strength of the stallion she'd been bred to and the family she came from. You haven't bred a single horse yet, and you've already spent more than most people's houses. Here's the part people miss. You don't make money selling horses. You make money renting out one horse's body over and over for the rest of its life. It's called a stud fee. A top stallion doesn't need to race anymore once he retires to stud duty. He stands in a barn and mares are brought to him. Or more commonly now, his semen is shipped to farms across the country and even internationally. A single stallion can cover over 150 mares a year this way. The fee per mare ranges from $10,000 for a decent but unremarkable sire, up to $225,000 or more for the very top of the market. Justify, the 2018 Triple Crown winner, owned by Coolmore's Ashford Stud, has reportedly commanded fees near that top number in his best seasons. Do the math. 150 mares at $200,000 each is $30 million a year from one animal standing in one barn doing the exact same thing every single day with no marketing team, no staff turnover, no supply chain. And it's not a one-year deal. A healthy stallion can breed for 15 to 20 years before his fertility declines, which means one good horse purchased or bred at the right moment can generate more lifetime revenue than most Fortune 500 side businesses, off nothing but genetics and reputation. This is also why the biggest players in this industry aren't individual ranchers. It's operations like Coolmore, which runs breeding farms across Ireland, Kentucky, and Australia specifically to breed horses in both hemispheres year-round, doubling the number of seasons a top stallion can work in a single calendar year. And it's why Sheikh Mohammed of Dubai, through Godolphin, has spent an estimated hundreds of millions of dollars building one of the largest breeding operations on Earth. These aren't hobbyists. They're running the closest thing horse racing has to a monopoly on genetics. So, before we get to the part where this all falls apart, because it does for a lot of people, there's a version of this that's way more accessible than an $8 million farm. And I go through exactly how in this video So why do owners retire a horse the moment it wins one big race, instead of racing it for years and building an even bigger legend? Because the racing was never the business. The breeding rights were. Fusaichi Pegasus won the Kentucky Derby in 2000, raced only a handful more times afterward, and was syndicated for stud duty at a reported $60 million. His racing career made his connections a few $1,000,000 in prize money. His breeding career made them tens of millions of dollars a year for over a decade afterward. American Pharoah, the first Triple Crown winner in 37 years, retired within months of his final race for the same reason. He'd proven what he needed to prove. Every additional race was pure downside. An injury, a bad run, a loss that dents the legend, against very little additional upside, because breeders had already seen enough to start writing checks. The horse doesn't need to keep winning. It just needs to have won once in a way people remember, and then it needs to never race again so the moment stays perfect. This is the exact opposite of how almost every other business works. Normally, you want your product performing and visible for as long as possible. Here, the smartest move is to create one unforgettable moment and then immediately stop before reality has a chance to complicate the story. But here's what the highlight reels don't show you. In 1990, Ali Dard, one of the most successful stallions in American history, standing at $500,000 a mare, died in his stall in a locked barn under circumstances so suspicious that Calumet Farms owner was later convicted of fraud tied to the horse's life insurance payout. The farm itself, one of the most storied names in American racing going back generations, went bankrupt the same year. That's the extreme case. The common one is quieter, and it happens to breeders who did everything right. A stallion's value is entirely a bet on his offspring, not his own race record, his kids' race records. If his first 2 or 3 crops of foals don't perform on the track, breeders stop paying top dollar for him almost overnight. A horse worth $30 million a year in stud fees can be worth a fraction of that within 3 seasons, because the entire industry is forward-looking and brutally unsentimental. Nobody pays for what a stallion did. They pay for what his children are about to do, and the moment that bet looks shaky, the money disappears. Unlike land, which sits there appreciating whether you touch it or not, and unlike cattle, which you can always sell for something, a stallion's income can evaporate almost overnight, and there's no floor under it. You can't sell potential. Once the market decides a horse's bloodline isn't producing winners, that $30 million a year asset can become a $500,000 horse standing in the same barn, eating the same hay, producing a fraction of the income. There's also the insurance problem. Insuring a horse worth tens of millions of dollars costs 3 to 5% of his insured value every single year. On a $30 million stallion, that's up to $1.5 million a year, just so you don't lose everything if he colics, breaks a leg, or dies of something as mundane as a twisted intestine. Which is, unbelievably, one of the more common ways a multi-million-dollar horse can die in a single afternoon. Real numbers. Let's run this 2 ways. Optimistic scenario. Your $8 million farm produces one horse that wins a major race and gets syndicated into stud duty at $80,000 a mare, breeding 120 mares a year. That's $9.6 million in stud fees annually. Costs, vet care, insurance at roughly 4% of his value, staff, feed, farm upkeep. Eat up maybe $2 million of that. You're clearing $7.6 million a year from one horse, for as long as breeders want his bloodline, which could be 15 years or more. Run that for 10 years, and one lucky colt just paid for your entire ranch 8 times over, and everything after that is close to pure profit. Now, the realistic scenario, which is what happens to most breeders who get one good horse. His first full crop hits the track and underperforms. Nothing scandalous, they just don't run particularly well. Demand for his semen drops overnight. Your $80,000 fee becomes $15,000 because that's what the market will actually pay for a stallion whose kids aren't winning. Instead of $9.6 million a year, you're making $1.8 million against $2 million in costs. You're now losing money on the one asset that was supposed to carry the entire farm, and there's no version of working harder that fixes it, because you can't make his offspring run faster through effort. You just wait and hope the next crop is better while the bills keep coming. This is the entire industry compressed into one horse. Enormous, almost unbelievable upside, sitting directly next to a downside that can wipe out a farm in 3 bad seasons. The land underneath it all is the only part of this business that behaves predictably, appreciating quietly regardless of what any single horse does. Everything above the soil is a bet, dressed up as agriculture. The horse doesn't have to win forever. It just has to win once, at the right moment, in front of the right people. And then you'd better hope his kids can run too.